Good afternoon, students. I'm Ajay and I am your digital marketing trainer for today. Behalf of Plant Green Inertia Digital Marketing Team, this is for non-Mudalvan Digital Marketing Project. This session is 2.5 hours. So totally you have about 18 interventions. Now let us start with today's chapter 8. Today's chapter is about visual content creation and strategy. After completing this chapter, students will be able to understand the role of visual content in digital communication. You will also be able to explain the principles of visual perception and storytelling. You will also be able to plan the visual content strategically across platforms. You will also be able to manage the visual consistency and accessibility and overall evaluate the visual communication ethically in educational, business, and social contexts. Now, let us see what is visual content in contemporary digital communication. The visual content occupies a central position in contemporary digital communication. Images, graphics, videos, and visual layouts influence how information is noticed, interpreted, and remembered. In digital environments characterized by information overload, the visuals serve as cognitive anchors that guide attention and comprehension. In educational settings, the visual content supports conceptual understanding and retention. In business contexts, the visuals shape the brand perception and clarity of value propositions. And in social contexts, the visuals often carry emotional and cultural meanings that influence the public discourse. Now, recognizing these roles enables the students to approach the visual creation as a strategic communication activity rather than a decorative exercise. For example, the infographics explaining the academic concepts, the brand visuals reinforcing the identity, and the visual campaigns raising the social awareness. Now, students, let me break it down and explain to you in simple terms what is visual content in digital communication. Let me start with a simple question. When you scroll Instagram or YouTube, what catches your attention first? Is it the text that catches your attention, or is it the visuals that catches your attention? Most of you students will say visuals. Why? Because in today's digital world, the attention is limited and the visuals capture it immediately. So the attention is limited and the visuals capture it instantly. That is why visual content dominates the contemporary digital communication. Now let us see what is visual content. Visual content refers to any digital communication that uses images, graphics, videos, or visual elements to convey a story or message. Let me explain that again. Any digital communication that uses images, graphics, videos, or visual elements to convey a message. Now, that includes images, infographics, memes, videos, reels and shorts, GIFs, and animations. Now, let us see and discuss why visual communication is important today. Because we are living in a scroll economy. People consume content quickly, so visuals communicate faster than text. Let me tell you the reasons for importance. Because short attention spans, mobile first consumption, faster emotional impact, and higher engagement rates. These four are the main reasons why visuals are important. Now let us try to understand what is the psychological power of visual content. The visuals trigger the emotions, the visuals improve the memory retention, the visuals simplify the complex information, and the visuals influence the decision making. Studies show people remember visuals more than the plain text. So the example is a chart explaining data is easier to understand than a paragraph. Now let us see and try to understand the evolution of digital communication. Earlier it was blogs, long form text, and email newsletters. But today, in this scroll generation, it is about Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram Stories. The communication has shifted from reading to watching. Previously, it was only about reading, for example, blogs, long form text, and email newsletters. But today, it has evolved into watching Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. So the communication has changed from reading to watching. Now, let me tell you the types of visual content in digital communication. The first one is informational visuals. What are informational visuals? For example, infographics, data visualizations, charts, and educational videos. Now, the second type of visuals is emotional visuals. So, what are examples of emotional visuals? The first one is storytelling videos, the second one is brand films, and the third one is lifestyle photography. So, these three are examples of emotional visuals which are used to build the emotional connection with the audience. The third example is promotional visuals. So, what are examples of promotional visuals? The first one is product images, ad creatives, banner advertisements, and sponsored reels. All of these as example for promotional visuals because they are used for marketing and sales. Now, the fourth type of visuals are interactive visuals. What are examples of interactive visuals? So, the first one is polls, live videos, interactive stories, and AR filters to encourage the audience participation. So, these are examples of visuals in digital communication. Now, let us see what are the principles of visual perception and interpretation. Visual perception refers to how individuals interpret the visual stimuli based on prior knowledge, cultural context, and cognitive processing. Elements such as color, contrast, alignment, and hierarchy influence the attention and meaning making. Effective visual communication respects these perpetual principles. Design choices affect the clarity and interpretation. Poorly organized visuals can confuse the users, while thoughtful design enhances the understanding. The students must learn to consider how audiences perceive the visuals across devices and context. So, for example, the use of contrast to highlight key information, alignment improving the overall readability, and visual hierarchy guiding the viewing order. So, these are examples of principles of visual perception and interpretation. Now, students, I am going to give you all an activity and a task. Please try to understand whatever we have discussed and the key terminologies which we have discussed in visual content in digital communication, and what are the principles of visual perception and interpretation. So please take down notes of these two topics and write down the key terminologies which we have discussed. And after you finish taking down the notes, then we shall move to the next page and the next topic. Okay, students, now let us move to the next topic: visual storytelling and narrative structure. Visual storytelling involves using visual elements to convey narratives, ideas, or messages over time. The storytelling adds coherence and emotional resonance to content. Even single visuals imply narratives through composition and symbolism. Narrative structure includes a beginning that attracts attention, a middle that develops meaning, and an end that reinforces purpose. So, visual stories are particularly effective on social media and educational platforms where the engagement depends on clarity and relevance. So, for example, step by step visual tutorials, campaign visuals showing progression, and educational illustrations explaining processes. Now, let us see and try to understand what is the role of visual content in the marketing funnel. Visual content supports all stages of the marketing funnel. For example, number one, the awareness stage, you get viral videos and eye catching reels. In the consideration stage, the visual content supports demo videos and testimonials. And in the decision making stage, you get product comparison videos and before and after visuals. But whereas in the post purchase stage, the visual content comes in the form of user generated content and community posts. Now let us see the visual branding. Visual content helps build, number one, brand identity, b- consistency, and recognition. The second one, what are the elements in visual branding? Logo design, color palette, typography, and design style. So, all of these are the visual elements that help in visual branding. So, consistency always improves the credibility of the branding. Now, so long we have seen what are the advantages of visual communication and visual branding. Now, we are going to see and discuss the challenges of visual communication. Let us see what that is. The first challenge is information overload. The second challenge is misinformation via edited visuals. And the third challenge is manipulation through deep fakes. Whereas the fourth challenge is over editing, creating unrealistic standards. Now, these four are very common and prime examples of challenges of visual communication. Why? Because the ethical use of these visuals are very, very important. So that is why it is important for audiences, for digital marketers and brands to use all of these ethically. Now let us see strategic planning of visual content. Visual content strategy involves designing what visuals to create, for whom, and for what purpose. Strategy ensures alignment between visuals and communication objectives. Without planning, visual output becomes inconsistent and ineffective. Strategic planning considers audience preferences, platform requirements, and message complexity. It also involves balancing originality with clarity. So, the example is visual planning for academic outreach, campaign based visual themes, and platform specific visual adaptation. Now, students, let me break it down for you and make you understand in simple terms what is the strategic importance. In contemporary digital communication, the algorithms favor the video, the engagement increases with visuals, the shareability improves, and the communication becomes faster. So, visual content is no longer optional, it is essential. So, let me tell you this very clearly: visual content is the language of modern digital communication. It captures attention, it simplifies information, it drives the engagement, and it builds brand identity. So, in today's digital world, if you are not visual, you are invisible. Now, students, I'm going to give you all an activity and a task. Please try to understand the important terminologies that we have discussed in these two topics, which is visual storytelling and narrative structure, the strategic planning of visual content, as these are very important. Only if you understand this topic, you would overall try to understand the foundations of digital marketing. So please take down notes of these two topics. I will keep this page open for you. So once you're done taking down notes of these terminologies, then we shall move to the next topic. Now, students, let us move to the next topic: platform specific visual formats and standards. Different platforms support different visual formats, dimensions, and interaction styles. Understanding these differences is essential for effective visual communication. The visuals must be optimized for platform norms while maintaining the consistency. Platform standards influence the design choices such as aspect ratio, text density, and animation. Adapting the visuals appropriately improves the engagement and the accessibility. For example, square visuals for feeds, vertical visuals for story, and thumbnails for video platforms. Now let me explain it to you, break it down and explain it to you in simple terms. Let me start by asking you a simple question. Can you post the same video on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn and expect the same equal results? Many of you would say no, because each platform has its own visual format, audience behavior, algorithm preference, and content standards. That is why platform specific optimization is important. What does platform specific visuals format mean? It means designing the visual content according to the technical and behavioral requirements of each platform. The one size does not fit all in digital communication. Now, let us see and discuss why platform specific design matters. The content must fit the platform, not the other way around. So, the reasons why platform specific designs matter is because of different screen orientations, different user behavior, different content consumption styles, and different algorithm preferences. Now, let us see what are the major platform visual standards. The first one is Instagram. The primary format for Instagram is 9 by 16. So, this is suitable and best for Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories, and carousel posts. So, the characteristics of this aspect ratio is fast paced, visually attractive, short attention span, and strong hook in the first 3 seconds. So the recommended resolution for this reels is 1080p into 1920. The second platform is YouTube. So in YouTube, there are two main formats. Number one is long form, and the other one is short form. So in the long form, the aspect ratio is 16 by 9 landscape. The other format is high production value. Now, in the other format, which is in YouTube Shorts, the preferred aspect ratio is 9 by 16 vertical. So the characteristics are very strong thumbnail, SEO optimized title, engaging intro, and very clear structure. Thumbnail quality directly impacts the click through rate. Now let us see in LinkedIn. The preferred format for LinkedIn is professional visuals, clean design, informative carousels, landscape or square videos. So the characteristics are number one, educational, number two, insight driven, number three, less flashy, and number four, it is more value focused. The fourth type of format is Facebook. So the first one is 1 is to 1, which is a square format. The second one is 4 is to 5, which is a vertical format. And the third one is 16 by 9, which is a landscape format. So the characteristics are number one, mixed audience. Number two, community focused characteristics. And number three, shareable content. Now let me explain to you platform behavior differences. Let me explain this very clearly. The Instagram platform behavior is about entertainment plus aesthetic. The YouTube platform is about information plus depth. The LinkedIn platform is about professional plus authority. And Facebook platform behavior is about community plus shareability. So the same content must be adapted to the platform behavior. Now let us see the visual standards to maintain across the platforms. Even when the formats differ, you should always maintain the brand colors, the logo placement, the typography consistency, the visual identity, and the very same tone of communication, because consistency builds the brand recognition. Visual branding and consistency. Visual branding refers to the consistent use of colors, typography, imagery, and layout to establish identity. Consistency builds recognition and trust over time. Inconsistent visuals weaken the credibility and confuses the audience. So visual guidelines support coherence across creators and platforms. Academic and social institutions benefit from visual consistency as much as commercial brands. So, for example, consistent color palettes, maintain consistent color palettes, always use repeated typographic styles, and always use unified visual themes. So, the visual standards that you need to maintain across the platforms are the brand colors, the logo placement, the typography consistency, the visual identity, and the tone of communication. Why are we banking on consistency? Because consistency builds brand recognition. So always be consistent with your visual style and design. So now, students, I'm going to give you all a task and an activity. Please try to understand the key terminologies which we have discussed in these two topics, which is platform specific visual formats and standards and visual branding and consistency. And please take down these terminologies that we have written. I'll keep the page front of you. Please take notes of these two topics, and after you finish, then we shall move to the next topic. Okay, students, now let us move to the next topic, accessibility and inclusivity in visual design. Accessible visual design ensures that content can be perceived and understood by diverse users, including those with visual impairments. Accessibility considerations include contrast, readability, and alternative descriptions. Inclusive design expands the reach and reflects the ethical responsibility. Students should understand the accessibility as a core design principle rather than an afterthought. So, the examples are high contrast color usage, clear typography, and alternative text for images. So, the common mistakes that people use are posting landscape video on vertical platform, ignoring the subtitles, using low resolution, not optimizing the thumbnails, or copy pasting the same caption everywhere. So, this reduces the reach and engagement. So, the strategic importance of this is the platform specific optimization. It improves the engagement, it increases the reach, it boosts the algorithm performance, and it enhances the user experience. So, smart marketers design once and adapt everywhere. So, let me tell you this very clearly, content creation is creative, content adaptation is strategic. So every platform has technical standards, audience expectations, and visual culture because the successful digital communicators understand the platform, respect the format, and adapt the visual strategy. Now let us see what are the ethical considerations in visual content creation. Ethical visual communication avoids manipulation, mispresentation, and cultural insensitivity. The visuals carry persuasive power and must be used responsibly. Ethical considerations include accuracy, consent, and respectful representation. Students must evaluate the social impact of visuals, particularly in educational and public contexts. Ethical practice supports long term trust. So, for example, avoiding misleading imagery, respecting the cultural symbols, and transparent visual messaging. So, in today's digital world, why the visuals are powerful? Because they influence opinions, they influence emotions, they influence buying decisions, and they influence social beliefs. So, with great visual power comes great responsibility.